Louise Perry joins Chris Williamson to discuss the challenges faced by modern women.
They begin by questioning the authenticity of Bonnie Blue's alleged pregnancy, with Louise betting that she's not pregnant due to the low chances of two women, Bonnie Blue and Lily Phillips, being pregnant at the same time. The conversation shifts to the potential consequences of Bonnie Blue's alleged pregnancy, with Louise expressing concern about the psychological toll on the child and the potential for social services to intervene. The discussion turns to the topic of OnlyFans and its impact on young women. Louise compares it to a criminal record, making it difficult for women to find partners and have children in the future. She notes that most women on OnlyFans earn very little money, and the reputational risks are high.
Chris agrees, pointing out that the market for OnlyFans has become saturated, and the bubble that formed around COVID has shifted to decline.
Louise shares her thoughts on Bonnie Blue and Lily Phillips, saying that Lily Phillips seems vulnerable and may be doing OnlyFans as a form of self-harm. She's not sure about Bonnie Blue, but thinks she might be one of the rare women who genuinely enjoys having sex with many men.
Chris notes that there's a distribution of different mental makeups within society, and maybe there's a role for women like Bonnie Blue who don't care about getting attached. The conversation touches on the idea of agency and whether people should be free to make their own choices.
Louise argues that agency is a personality trait, not an essential quality of human beings, and that some people are naturally more agentic than others.
Chris notes that this raises questions about whether people should be allowed to make choices that might harm themselves or others. The discussion turns to the topic of childbirth and pain management. Some people think that childbirth should be a painful experience, but others argue that it doesn't have to be. In fact, there are medications like epidurals that can help manage pain during childbirth.
Louise notes that childbirth is one of the few areas of medicine where pain management is still a bit of a taboo topic. The conversation also delves into the topic of sex work and the psychological effects it can have on women. One woman, Andrea Hines, talks about how being in the sex industry can be like being in an abusive relationship, except instead of one person, it's hundreds of men. This can lead to feelings of low self-worth and a lack of confidence in one's abilities.
Louise and Chris discuss the idea of population collapse and the role of women's standards in the dating market. Chris mentions a video that featured him discussing these issues and how he was surprised by the backlash, while
Louise notes that the discussion around population collapse is often not thoughtful and that people struggle to articulate their problems with the issue. The conversation turns to the topic of marriage and relationships.
Chris mentions the declining rates of marriage, particularly among Gen Z, and asks Louise about her thoughts on the matter.
Louise shares the insights of Lyman Stone, who believes that the main problem with fertility rates in the West is that people are getting married too late. Lyman Stone's theory is that the reason people aren't getting married younger is because men in their 20s are not able to signal their suitability as husbands in a way they used to. Louise notes that the post-war baby boom may have been partly due to the fact that many men had military service, which provided a costly signal of their suitability as husbands.
Chris adds that the exposure to life expectations of others online can create lifestyle inflation and intergenerational competition, making people feel like they're not good enough. Despite being better off economically than previous generations, Gen Z feels poor and unprepared. The conversation also touches on the topic of optimal parenting and the perils of the pressure of trying to be an optimal parent.
Louise shares her insights on the role of neuroticism in parenting and how it can be both adaptive and discouraging. She wonders if neuroticism might be discouraging people from having children and how it can affect our behavior as parents. Louise notes that many women today struggle with the idea of letting go and not being overly invested in their children's lives. This can be attributed to the fact that women are often expected to be perfect caregivers, and any mistakes can have serious consequences. However, Louise suggests that this level of neuroticism may actually be detrimental to women's ability to have children. The conversation turns to the topic of trad life, or traditional living. Louise notes that many people today are trying to recreate a more traditional way of living, but that this can be difficult in modern society. She suggests that actual trad life is not about being selective and choosing the perfect homeschooling curriculum, but rather about making do with what you have and being part of a community.
Louise and Chris discuss the idea of patrilocal and matrilocal societies and how these different cultural norms can affect family dynamics.
Louise notes that English working-class culture is traditionally matrilocal, and that this can lead to interesting dynamics between mothers-in-law and daughters-in-law. The conversation ends with Louise sharing her insights on her book, The Case Against Sexual Revolution, and her upcoming young adult edition, titled A New Guide to Sex in the 21st Century.
Chris praises Louise's work, calling The Case Against Sexual Revolution a seminal book that has even inspired a meme among young women who refer to being peri-pilled.
He encourages listeners to check out her podcast and book, and Louise thanks him for the opportunity to share her ideas. Main learning from video. The discussion covers various topics, including the potential consequences of Bonnie Blue's alleged pregnancy, the impact of OnlyFans on young women, and the psychological effects of childbirth on men. Louise Perry argues that agency is a personality trait, not an essential quality of human beings, and that some people are naturally more agentic than others. The conversation also touches on the idea of population collapse and the role of women's standards in the dating market. Louise Perry shares her insights on optimal parenting and the perils of the pressure of trying to be an optimal parent. She notes that modern society has created a culture of fear around parenting, which can be overwhelming and may actually be a deterrent to women having children. The discussion highlights the importance of nuanced and thoughtful conversation around these complex issues. Key takeaways include the need for a more realistic understanding of the challenges faced by women and the importance of community and support in navigating these challenges. The conversation also emphasizes the value of exploring different cultural norms and expectations, such as metro-local societies, in shaping our experiences and choices. Overall, the discussion provides valuable insights into the complexities of modern society and the need for a more thoughtful and nuanced approach to addressing the challenges faced by women. To access the complete 18-minute summary and unlock detailed insights for each topic discussed in the video, please subscribe to quick podcast summaries on Spotify and Apple Podcasts with free trial and later just for the price of candy in most places. Happy listening.